Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads, the last Weekly Reads of 2024. This reading week and the first few reading weeks of 2025 are going to be weird. This Weekly Reads covers my reading from last Friday to Christmas Eve, the 24th, so this past Tuesday. Next Weekly Reads will cover what I read from Christmas Day through to New Year's Eve. And then on New Year's Day, I will start on Fairy Tale by Hiro Mishima and read the entire series. So the first Weekly Reads during that period will be, so the second Weekly Reads of January will be focusing on what I will be reading after Fairy Tale, and then the Weekly Reads of once I finish Fairy Tale will be just talking about Fairy Tale. So the next few weeks Weekly Reads Rise will be rather weird. This particular reading week was a disappointment. And yeah, so let's get going. So my goal for this reading week was to reread Perdido Street Station by China Mieville. Perdido Street Station is the first in the Boss Log series of novels. It is set in the city-state of New Crubuzon, the most powerful state, or one of the most powerful states in Boss Log. Isaac is a rogue scientist. He performs science for various shady and underworld figures. One day, a Garuda Yagoric comes to Isaac seeking his aid. Yagoric has been judicially mutilated, and he wishes for Isaac to allow him to fly again. Isaac agrees and begins to collect flying things so that he can study the physiology of flight. One of the flying things he collects is a strange caterpillar that seems to not eat anything until a local drug addict comes in and the caterpillar goes Coco for dream shit, a new drug that's all the rage. So eventually, after eating copious amounts of dream shit, this caterpillar pupates and becomes a monstrous moth that drinks sentience. And this moth was one of a number of moths imported into New Crubuzon by the government for reasons that are never explained or clearly explained. But after a while, they are sold off to a crime lord named Mr. Motley, who milks them to produce dream shit. Unfortunately, and so this monstrous moth escapes, frees its siblings, and they go on a rampage across New Crubuzon, drinking hundreds of people's sentience. Unfortunately for Isaac, not only is Mr. Motley pissed off about this once he finds out, but Isaac's girlfriend Lynn, an artist who Mr. Motley's quite fond of her work and has commissioned her to do a sculpture of him, is now also in Motley's possession. So Isaac has to deal with the moths, rescue Lynn, and deal with a very, very corrupt New Crubuzon and some weird monstrous beings who may or may not be his allies. I first read Perdido Street Station in late 2006 or very early 2007, and it blew me away. The world building was like nothing I had read before. Mieville's style is like nothing I had read before. And I kind of, at the time, thought, this is the kind of fantasy I want to write. Now, I did have some issues with Perdido Street Station at the time. The ending stinks. Even if the bittersweet or the bitter ending is the point, it still stinks. The plot itself is maybe not as strong as it could be. And I'm not particularly fond of the characters, outside of the alien Weaver. But I did collect the rest of the series, which we'll get to during the forthcoming library tour. And I did read the whole series and eventually reread at least Perdido Street Station and The Scar a few years later. I don't quite remember if those rereads were the only rereads or if there had been a subsequent rereading. But regardless, so it was 2006, 2007 for my first read. Somewhere around 2010, 2011, maybe 2012 at the latest for the reread. And I don't recall if there has been a reread since. But with the reread and subsequent rereads, including this one, I haven't enjoyed the book as much. It just, I guess with the first reread, it just, I had been familiar with it, and so the flaws of the novel really popped out at me, which is true of this rereading attempt. I just could not get into it, and I just found the writing not so much revolutionary, but pretentious, and the characters just really annoying. So, yeah. So I did bail on it, and I think this is a foreshadowing of a much larger cleansing of my science fiction and fantasy collection than I had perhaps thought was going to happen. So, yeah, that was a bit bitter. But I'll get over it. I usually do. And so, yeah, that was Perdido Street Station. I decided, instead of a reread attempt of Weaver, Scrubs, and Kings, to dip into some of the poetry I had read over the course of this year. Some for the first time, and some for rereads. So I dipped into Nest of Matches by Amie Whittemore, At Lake Scugog by Troy Jollimore, The View from Saturn by Alice Friman, and Sibilance by Sally Van Doren. And I just didn't do anything for me on this reread. So I don't know what this is going to foreshadow with my 2025 reading. I'm hoping things change and I can get into I don't know. I guess we'll see how things turn out in 2025. I'm going to do a sketch on Monday of my reading plans. I'm fairly confident what I'm going to do regarding manga. Everything else, I'm not sure because I'm not really enjoying what else I'm trying to read. It isn't working. So I need to figure out what to do about that and not let this. Well, we'll see how things turn out. But this was disappointing, to say the least. Now, to preview next weekly reads, I did read some manga on Christmas Day and yesterday, and I really enjoyed them. So there's at least that bright spot, but I'm holding that off until next week. And today and through the rest of 2024, I will be reading more volumes of manga. And yeah, hopefully 2025 will, we'll see. Anyway, so to update on video plans for next week. So on Monday will be a rough sketch of my 2025 reading plans. I will try to do some tag videos on Tuesday. On Wednesday will be and Thursday and Friday will be the beginning of my 2025 library tour, as well as my January reading plans. I'm starting to assemble a pile of possibilities, and I'll go through them and whittle them down during that video to hopefully a more manageable level, even though Fairy Tale is going to take up about half of January, so everything else will be a bit less. And I'll try to do some more tag videos and other videos as well if I'm interested. Anyway, sorry for this downer weekly reads, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do or how deeply the next book purge is going to be. Anyway, so hopefully you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening and weekend, and I will see you on Monday. So until then, thank you, BookTube. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.